Stop pretending you don't feel me. The voice brushed the back of my ear like a breath that didn't belong to the room, low and steady and entirely too close for someone who wasn't there. I froze in the middle of my apartment, keys still dangling from my fingers, the soft jingle echoing louder than it should have in the silence. My place wasn't big, maybe 800 square feet if you were being generous, but in that moment it felt stretched, warped, like the walls had taken a step back just to watch me panic. I turned slowly, scanning the dim corners, the couch, the kitchen counter with last night's takeout container still sitting there like evidence of a normal life I was clearly no longer living. Nothing. No one. Just me, my pulse hammering somewhere up near my throat, and the distinct, impossible sensation that someone had just leaned in close enough to speak directly against my skin. I let out a laugh under my breath, the kind you use when you're trying to convince yourself you're fine. Okay, I muttered, dropping my keys onto the counter. That's new. Lack of sleep. That had to be it. Too many late nights, too much caffeine, not enough actual human interaction. My brain was glitching, that's all. I rubbed the back of my neck, stepping further into the apartment, kicking off my shoes like muscle memory could anchor me back into reality. But then I felt it again. Not a sound this time. A pull. Subtle at first, like gravity had shifted half an inch to the left. My body reacted before my brain did, my shoulders tightening, my breath catching as someone, seemed to draw me backward, just a fraction. I stopped moving. The air behind me felt colder, not freezing, just present. A presence. Close enough that if I leaned back, I had the terrifying certainty I wouldn't be alone anymore. Yeah, no, I said under my breath, forcing a step forward. The pull resisted. Not hard, not aggressive, just enough to make my chest tighten, like a hand hovering inches from my spine, not touching, but guiding. I swallowed, my fingers curling slightly at my sides. This isn't real. The words sounded thin, like they didn't quite believe themselves. I took another step. The pull followed. Closer. Always closer. My reflection caught in the dark TV screen across the room, and for a split second, I thought. No, I knew. I saw something behind me. Not a face. Not clearly. Just a shape. Tall. Still. Wrapped in something dark that swallowed the light instead of reflecting it. I spun around. Nothing. Of course nothing. My apartment stared back at me, innocent, quiet, unchanged. But my skin didn't get the memo. Every inch of it was awake, hyper-aware, like it was waiting for something it already recognized. I exhaled slowly, dragging a hand through my hair. You're losing it, Adrian, I said, more firmly this time. But even as I said it, I took a step backward. Testing. The air shifted again. That same subtle pull, stronger now, like it had been waiting for me to notice. I didn't hit a wall. I didn't trip over anything. I just stopped, like I'd reached the edge of something invisible. And then, right at the base of my neck, a whisper. Not loud, not urgent, just certain. You always come back. My breath left me in a quiet, shaky exhale, and for the first time that night, I didn't try to move away. Because the worst part wasn't the voice. It wasn't the shadow I couldn't quite see. It was the way my body, traitorous and still, leaned ever so slightly into the space behind me, like it had been waiting to be pulled closer all along. I should have moved. I should have stepped forward, turned on every light in the apartment, called someone, done anything that made sense in a world where voices did not appear out of thin air and pull you backward like gravity had a personal agenda. Instead, I stood there, breath shallow, staring at nothing while every nerve in my body insisted I was not alone. The space behind me felt occupied, not crowded, just claimed, like someone had chosen that exact spot and refused to leave it. I swallowed, my throat dry, and forced my feet to move. One step forward. The pressure eased. Not gone. Just disappointed. I let out a shaky breath and kept walking until I hit the kitchen counter, bracing my hands against the cool surface like it could anchor me. Okay, I said again, quieter this time, because saying it louder did not seem to help. You are imagining things. I reached for my phone, more out of habit than intention, scrolling aimlessly, the glow of the screen washing over my face. Messages. Notifications. Normal things. Real things. I clung to them like proof that the world still worked the way it was supposed to. But even as I stared at the screen, my attention kept slipping, dragged back to the same invisible point behind me. That pull had not disappeared. It had only adjusted. Like it was waiting, watching, patient. I locked my phone and set it down slowly, every movement suddenly deliberate. If this is a joke, I muttered, not entirely sure who I was talking to. It is not funny. Silence answered me. Thick, expectant. I exhaled and turned around again, slower this time, like I was giving whatever was there a chance to reveal itself. The room stayed the same. Couch, lamp, window with the blinds half open, city lights bleeding through in soft gold lines. Nothing moved. Nothing shifted. But then I noticed it. My reflection in the window. Not mine exactly. Mine was there, shoulders tense, eyes too wide. But behind it, layered faintly like a shadow that did not belong to the lighting, was something darker. Taller. Still. I froze, staring straight ahead, afraid that if I blinked it would disappear, and somehow that would be worse. The shape did not move. It did not flicker. It simply existed, as if it had always been there, and I was just now catching up. My heart started pounding again, louder this time, filling my ears with a steady, relentless rhythm. You are not real, I said, barely above a whisper. The reflection did not argue. It did not need to. Because a second later, I felt it again. Closer. Not just behind me now. Around me. Not touching. Never touching. Just there. The air shifted, brushing past my arm, my shoulder, the side of my neck, like a presence learning the shape of me without ever making contact. My breath caught, and this time I did not try to move away. I should have. Every logical part of my brain was screaming at me to step forward, to break whatever invisible line I had stepped into. But something deeper, quieter, held me in place. Curiosity, recognition, something I did not want to name. What do you want? I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. For a moment, nothing happened. And then, just at the edge of hearing, so close it felt like it came from inside my own chest, the answer came. You already know. My fingers tightened against the counter behind me, and for the first time, the thought hit me, sharp and unwelcome. This was not the first time. I just could not remember the others. The silence after that answer did not feel empty. It felt full, like the air itself had weight, pressing lightly against my chest, my shoulders, the back of my neck. I stayed where I was, fingers still gripping the edge of the counter, staring at my reflection in the window, as if it might explain something. It did not. It just stared back, wide-eyed, tense, a version of me that looked like he was one breath away from bolting. But I did not run. I should have. That thought kept repeating, quieter each time, like even my own instincts were starting to lose the argument. I do not know anything, I said finally, my voice steadier than I felt. The words sounded wrong the second they left my mouth, like I had said something untrue without meaning to. The presence behind me shifted. Not a step, not movement in the way I understood it. Just closer. The space between us, whatever that space was, narrowed until I could feel it more clearly, like standing too close to a heater and not touching it, but knowing exactly where the warmth began. My breath slowed, not because I was calm, but because something about the moment demanded it. Every inhale felt measured. Every exhale deliberate. You keep saying that. The voice murmured, softer now, almost thoughtful. But your body remembers. My stomach tightened. That word again. Remembers. I swallowed, my gaze dropping from the window to the faint reflection of my hands on the counter. They did not look like they belonged to someone in control. My fingers were slightly curled, like they were waiting for something to slip into them. I straightened them quickly, shaking out my hands as if I could reset the feeling. Stop, I said, sharper this time. Just stop talking like you know me. A pause. Not empty. Considering. Then, closer than before, right at the edge of my hearing, I do know you. My heart skipped, not a full beat, just enough to make me notice. I turned again, faster this time, not giving myself time to think. The room was still the same, but the feeling was not. It was stronger now, anchored, like whatever had been lingering at the edges had decided to stay. My gaze drifted, not entirely by choice, toward the far corner of the living room where the light did not quite reach. For a second, nothing. And then the outline. Subtle, dark against dark. A figure that should have blended in, but did not. Tall, straight, watching. I did not see a face. I did not see eyes. But I felt the attention like a physical thing, steady and unbroken. My breath caught again, but this time it was not just fear. There was something else threading through it, something quieter and more dangerous. Recognition. I took a step back without realizing it. Not away. Toward. My heel brushed the rug, grounding me just enough to notice what I had done. I stopped immediately, tension snapping through me. No. I whispered, more to myself than anything else. No, I am not doing that. The figure did not move. It did not need to. The pull was there again, stronger now, not dragging, not forcing, just inviting in a way that felt impossible to ignore. Like standing at the edge of water and knowing exactly how it would feel before you even touched it. My chest tightened, breath shallow again, but my feet did not retreat. They stayed. Worse, they leaned. Just enough that if something reached for me, it would not have to reach far. You said I always come back? I said, forcing the words out, clinging to the logic of conversation like it could save me. From where? The silence stretched, long enough that I almost thought it would not answer this time. And then, low and certain, from me. The words settled into the room like they had always been there, like they belonged more than I did. My pulse thudded in my ears, but beneath it, quieter, steadier, something else answered. Not fear. Not exactly. Something that felt a little too much. Like agreement. The words settled into me like it had found something familiar to rest against. And that was the part that scared me the most. Not the voice, not the shadow in the corner, but the way my own body did not reject it. The way something inside me went still instead of fighting back, like it had been waiting for that exact answer. I exhaled slowly, but it came out uneven, catching halfway through like my lungs were unsure whether they should cooperate. That does not make any sense, I said, more to fill the silence than to argue, because arguing required certainty, and I was quickly running out of that. The figure in the corner remained where it was, a presence more than a shape, but the distance between us felt thinner now, like the room had quietly folded in on itself. I became acutely aware of every inch of space, of the 6 or 7 feet that should have separated us, of how it no longer felt like a real barrier. My fingers twitched at my sides again, that same strange anticipation settling into my muscles, like they were waiting for a signal I did not consciously understand. If I know you, I continued, forcing the words out carefully, then tell me how. The question hung there, heavier than the others, and for a moment nothing answered. I almost thought I had pushed too far, that whatever this was would retreat back into whatever place it had come from, leaving me alone with a story I would never be able to explain. But then the air shifted again, closer, unmistakably closer, and I felt it before I saw anything change, that same near contact along my arm, my shoulder, the side of my neck, like a presence aligning itself with me without ever crossing the line into touch. My breath slowed again, drawn into that strange rhythm I did not choose, but could not break. You forgot, the voice said quietly, not accusing, not surprised, just certain. You always do. My chest tightened, something pulling low and deep, not pain exactly, just pressure, like a memory trying to surface and getting stuck halfway. I shook my head instinctively, taking a step back this time, but the movement felt wrong, like I was stepping against something that had already decided my direction. I do not forget entire people, I said, sharper now, clinging to logic because it was the only thing that still felt like mine. That is not how memory works. A pause. Then, softer, almost thoughtful, it is when it is not only memory. The words landed differently, sliding past the part of my brain that wanted to argue and settling somewhere deeper, somewhere I could not immediately name. I glanced back toward the window again, toward the reflection, and this time the shape behind me was clearer, not detailed, not defined, but undeniably there, standing just a step behind where I was, aligned so precisely it felt intentional. My breath caught again, but I did not turn around. I did not need to. I could feel it now, the exact position, the way it stood just out of reach, the way it did not move because it did not have to. I was the one adjusting. I was the one leaning. If I forgot, I said slowly, choosing each word like it might trigger something I could not control, then why are you here now? The answer came without hesitation, low and steady, close enough that it felt like it settled directly against my skin. Because you started remembering. My fingers tightened again, and this time I did not try to stop it. A faint, fleeting sensation flickered at the back of my mind. Not a full image, not even a clear thought, Just a feeling, standing in darkness that did not feel empty, hearing that same voice without fear, without confusion, like it belonged there. I blinked hard, the moment slipping away as quickly as it came, leaving me standing in my apartment again, heart racing, breath uneven. That was not real, I whispered, but the words felt weaker now, like they were losing ground. Behind me, the presence did not argue. It did not need to, because the pull was still there, stronger than before, steady and patient, and for the first time, it did not feel like something trying to take me. It felt like something waiting for me to come back on my own. The pull did not fade. It settled. That was worse. It stopped feeling like something happening to me and started feeling like something that had always been there, something I had just been ignoring until now. I stayed where I was, staring at my reflection, at the faint outline that no longer felt like a trick of the light, but something steady and intentional, something that knew exactly where to stand to be seen without being fully revealed. My breathing evened out, not because I was calm, but because panic required resistance and I was starting to realize I was not resisting the way I should. If I am remembering, I said slowly, testing the words as they left my mouth, then why does it feel like this? The question lingered, and for a moment the room seemed to hold its breath with me. Then the answer came, softer than before, closer than before, like it had stepped into the space my question created. Because you are not remembering alone. My chest tightened at that, something in the phrasing catching under my skin, not painful, just significant. I frowned slightly, trying to make sense of it, but the logic kept slipping, like I was trying to solve something without all the pieces. That does not explain anything, I muttered, but the protest felt weaker now, less certain. The presence shifted again, not away, not forward, just aligning, like it was matching my position, my stance, the angle of my shoulders. I became aware of it in a way I could not ignore anymore, the exact height difference, the way it stood just behind and slightly to the side, close enough that if I leaned even an inch back, I would close the distance entirely. My pulse picked up again, but it was different this time, less sharp, more steady, like anticipation threading through it. I exhaled slowly, and, without fully deciding to, I moved. Not forward, not away, just a slight shift of weight, a half step that brought me closer to that invisible line. The reaction was immediate. The air around me seemed to respond, not dramatically, just enough that I felt it, like stepping into a space that had been waiting for me to fill it. My fingers curled again at my sides, that same quiet readiness settling into them, and I did not uncurl them this time. If this is real, I said, my voice quieter now, more focused, then show me something I cannot explain. The words felt like a challenge, but also like an invitation, and I was not sure which part of me had meant it that way. The silence that followed stretched just long enough to make me think nothing would happen. Then the temperature shifted, subtle but undeniable, a coolness brushing along my wrist, my forearm, tracing a path that never quite touched but felt mapped, deliberate. My breath hitched, and I looked down instinctively, even though I knew I would not see anything. There was nothing there, and yet my skin reacted, a faint awareness following that invisible path, as if something had passed close enough to leave a memory behind. I swallowed, my throat tight, my gaze lifting back to the reflection. The outline behind me had changed. Not fully visible, not clear, but closer. Closer in a way that erased any doubt about distance. It was no longer across the room. It was right behind me. My heart thudded once, hard enough to make my vision blur for a second. I should have stepped away. Every instinct I had ever trusted told me to put space between me and whatever this was. But instead I stayed. Worse, I leaned. Just slightly. Just enough to test it. The response was immediate again. That same near contact along my back. Not pressure, not weight. Just presence, steady and certain. I closed my eyes for a second, not out of fear, but because the sensation was easier to understand without sight. You are doing this, I said quietly, more statement than question. The answer came without delay, low and close and unmistakably certain. So are you. My eyes opened slowly, the room coming back into focus, but it felt different now, like the space itself had shifted to accommodate something I could no longer pretend was not there. And for the first time, the thought formed clearly, without resistance, without denial. I was not being pulled. Not entirely. I was stepping closer on my own. The realization did not hit all at once. It settled slowly, like something heavy lowering into place, piece by piece, until there was no room left to deny it. I stood there, barely moving, my body caught in that strange in-between where fear should have taken over but did not quite manage to. My reflection in the dark window looked different now, not because anything had visibly changed, but because I knew what I was looking at. Or at least, I knew enough to stop pretending it was nothing. The outline behind me was no longer distant, no longer uncertain. It was there, close enough that the space between us felt intentional, like it was being maintained on purpose. I drew in a slow breath, the air feeling cooler than it should have, brushing along my throat in a way that made me more aware of every inch of skin it passed over. If I am doing this too, I said quietly, my voice steady but lower than before, then tell me how to stop. The question felt important, necessary, like it might give me something to hold on to. The answer came just as steadily, without hesitation, without doubt. You do not want to. My chest tightened at that, the words landing somewhere deeper than I expected, somewhere that did not immediately reject them. I frowned, shaking my head instinctively. That is not true. But even as I said it, the conviction was not there. The pull remained, steady and patient, not forcing, not demanding, just present, waiting. I exhaled slowly, my gaze drifting again to the reflection, to the shape that stood so precisely behind me it felt like a second version of myself, just offset enough to remind me it was not. My fingers flexed again, and this time, instead of fighting it, I let them move. Slowly, carefully, I lifted one hand, palm facing slightly outward, as if testing the space in front of me. The air shifted immediately, not dramatically, just enough that I felt it, a faint change in pressure, like something had responded to the motion. My breath caught, my focus narrowing entirely to that one point, that invisible line between my hand and whatever stood behind me. This is not possible, I whispered, but the words felt like they belonged to an earlier version of me, one that still believed in clear boundaries and simple explanations. The presence behind me adjusted again, closer, aligning with the movement of my arm, my shoulder, my stance, until it felt less like something separate and more like something mirroring me from just beyond reach. My heart picked up, not sharp, not panicked, but steady and insistent, like it was sinking to something else. I swallowed, my throat tight, and without fully deciding to, I moved my hand back an inch. The response was immediate. The space behind me reacted, closing that distance without actually touching, a near contact that sent a quiet, unmistakable awareness down my spine. I froze, every muscle in my body going still, not because I was afraid, but because the moment felt precise, like it mattered exactly how I moved next. You feel that? The voice murmured, softer now, closer than it had ever been. It was not a question. I exhaled slowly, my eyes closing for just a second, because it was easier to understand without looking. Yes, I admitted, the word barely audible. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of something I could not name, something steady and certain and entirely focused on me. When I opened my eyes again, the reflection had shifted, not in shape, not in clarity, but in presence. It was closer, so close that the line between us no longer felt like a distance at all, just a boundary that had not been crossed yet. My hand remained suspended in that space, and for a brief, suspended second, I realized something that made my chest tighten in a completely different way. I was not trying to pull away anymore. I was trying to understand how close I could get. If I stop resisting, I said slowly, choosing the words with care, what happens? The answer came low and certain, right at the edge of my hearing, steady enough to feel like it had always been there. You stop being alone. The words settled into the room, into me, and for the first time since this started, I did not immediately look for a way to argue with them. Because something in me, quiet and undeniable, already knew that part was true. The words did not fade after he said them. They stayed, echoing in a way that did not feel like sound, but like something settling deeper, threading through my thoughts until I could not separate them from my own. You stop being alone. I stood there, unmoving, my hand still suspended in that narrow space where something almost touched me, but never quite did, and for the first time, I did not immediately pull it back. My fingers trembled slightly, not from fear exactly, but from the weight of the moment, like I understood without fully understanding that this was a line, and I was the one deciding whether to cross it. My reflection stared back at me, tense but different now, less like someone trying to escape and more like someone trying to see clearly. The shape behind me had not moved, but it felt closer, not in distance, but in certainty. I exhaled slowly, the air leaving my lungs in a controlled breath, and then, almost without thinking, I let my hand drift back another inch. The response was immediate. The space closed. Not with force, not with pressure, just with presence, unmistakable and steady, like something aligning perfectly with me. My breath hitched, my shoulders tightening as that awareness spread, a quiet, electric sense of something right there, matching the exact position of my hand without ever crossing into touch. I swallowed, my throat dry, my focus narrowing to that single point of almost contact. "This is not how anything works," I whispered, but the words sounded distant, like they belonged to a version of reality I was already stepping away from. The presence did not argue. It never argued. It simply remained, patient and certain, as if it had all the time in the world. My pulse steadied again, falling into that same rhythm I had felt earlier, like it was sinking to something just outside of me. I became aware of my breathing, the way each inhale seemed to draw something closer, the way each exhale made it settle. My fingers flexed slightly, testing the space, and again the response came, immediate and precise, mirroring the movement without touching. A quiet realization formed, slow but undeniable. It was not guessing. It was not reacting randomly. It was following me, or maybe matching me. I closed my eyes for a second, the sensation easier to understand without sight, and let my hand move again, just a fraction, just enough to confirm what I was starting to suspect. The presence followed. Perfectly. Not ahead. Not behind. With me. My breath left me in a soft exhale, something in my chest loosening in a way that felt dangerously close to relief. "You are not pulling me," I said quietly, the words forming before I could stop them. It was not a question this time. It was a realization. The voice came back just as softly, closer than ever, almost overlapping my own breath. "No." I opened my eyes again, staring at my reflection, at the shape that now felt less like something separate and more like something that had always been positioned exactly where it was supposed to be. My hand hovered there, suspended in that narrow space, and for the first time, I did not feel the urge to move away. Instead, I felt something else, something quieter, something that settled deeper than fear. Curiosity, recognition, a sense that I had been here before, in this exact moment, making this exact choice. My fingers moved again, slower this time, deliberate, closing the distance by the smallest possible margin. The air shifted in response, that same near contact brushing along my skin without touching, and I felt it clearly now, the shape of it, the presence of it, like something standing just on the other side of a boundary neither of us had crossed yet. My breath slowed, steady, controlled, as I held that position, that fragile, suspended moment where everything could change. "Then what are you doing?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The answer came immediately, low and certain, settling into the space between us like it belonged there. "Waiting." The word lingered, quiet but absolute, and something in me responded before I could stop it. A small, almost imperceptible shift forward, a choice made without hesitation. Because the truth, whether I wanted to admit it or not, was becoming harder to ignore. He was not the only one waiting. I was too, waiting. The word stayed in the air like it had weight, like it had been placed there carefully and was not going anywhere. I stood perfectly still, my hand still hovering in that narrow, invisible space, and for a moment, everything else faded. The apartment, the city lights outside the window, the low hum of electricity in the walls, all of it dimmed into the background until there was only this space, this presence, this decision. My breathing slowed again, steady and controlled, each inhale feeling deeper than the last, like I was drawing something in that was not entirely air. I did not pull my hand back. That was the first real change. Before, every instinct had pushed me to retreat, to break whatever this was before it could go further. Now, that instinct was quieter. Not gone. Just outweighed. I stared at my reflection, at the outline that no longer felt distant or separate, and for the first time, I noticed something else. It was not just matching me. It was waiting for me to decide the distance. That realization settled in slowly, but once it did, it changed everything. I was not being led. I was setting the pace. My fingers trembled slightly, then stilled, and I let them move again, just a fraction, closing the space even more. The response came instantly. The air shifted, that same near contact brushing along my skin, closer than before, precise enough that I could almost trace its shape without ever seeing it. My breath caught, but I did not stop. I leaned back. It was not a full movement, not a step, just a slight shift of weight, a quiet decision made without overthinking it. The reaction was immediate and unmistakable. The presence aligned with me, closer now, so close that the boundary between us felt like a line drawn in air rather than something real. I could feel it clearly, the shape of someone standing behind me, not touching, but occupying the exact space where touch would happen if I let it. My chest tightened, not with panic, but with something sharper, something more focused. Anticipation. You said I always come back, I said quietly, my voice steady despite everything. So this has happened before. The answer came low and certain, right behind me, so close it felt like it settled against the back of my neck. Yes. My pulse skipped, just once, enough to make me notice. I swallowed, my gaze still locked on the reflection, on the way the outline behind me now looked less like a shadow and more like a presence that had always belonged there. And I chose this. I continued, the words forming slowly, carefully, like I was testing each one before letting it exist. Another pause. Not hesitation. Consideration. Then, softer, you did. The confirmation settled into me in a way that made my chest tighten, but not in resistance. In recognition. I exhaled slowly, my eyes flicking down to my hand, still hovering in that space, still not touching, but closer than it had ever been. I could feel it now, clearly, the exact point where the boundary existed, the exact place where something would happen if I crossed it. My fingers moved again, deliberate this time, not testing, not uncertain. Choosing. The air shifted in response, that same near contact brushing along my skin, closer, closer, until it felt like there was nothing left between us but the smallest possible distance. My breath slowed, my focus narrowing completely, every sense tuned to that single moment. And if I do it again, I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper, if I cross it. The answer came immediately, steady and unchanging, like it had always been waiting for the question. Then you remember everything. The words settled into the space between us, heavy and absolute, and for a moment, I did not move. I just stood there, feeling the pull, feeling the presence, feeling the weight of what that meant. Then, slowly, without hesitation, I leaned back just a little more, closing the distance by the smallest possible fraction. And this time, the boundary did not feel like something stopping me. It felt like something waiting to be crossed. The moment stretched, thin and fragile, balanced on something I could not see but could feel with absolute clarity. I did not rush it. I did not hesitate either. My body had already made the decision somewhere deeper than thought, somewhere quieter than fear. I leaned back the smallest fraction more. And this time, the boundary gave. It was not a dramatic shift. There was no sudden jolt, no overwhelming force. It was subtle, precise, like stepping through something that had always been there, but had finally decided to let me pass. The air changed first. Not colder, not warmer, just closer. The space behind me no longer felt empty or waiting. It felt occupied, solid in a way that did not require touch to be real. My breath caught, but I did not pull away. I could not because I was trapped, but because the moment held me in place with a kind of quiet certainty I did not want to break. Then it happened. Not contact, not exactly, but something so close to it that my body reacted as if it had been touched. A presence aligning perfectly with mine, matching every angle, every breath, every slight shift of weight. My shoulders tightened instinctively, my fingers curling at my sides, but I did not step forward. I stayed, my eyes locked onto my reflection, and for the first time, the outline behind me sharpened just enough to be undeniable. Not fully visible, not detailed, but there, real in a way I could not explain or dismiss anymore. My pulse thudded once, hard and steady, and then something else followed. A flicker, not in the room, in me. a fragment of something that did not belong to this moment. Darkness, but not empty. A space that felt vast and endless, yet familiar. A voice, the same voice, but without distance, without hesitation, speaking like it had always been close. I blinked, and it shifted. Another fragment. Standing still, not afraid, not confused, just present, as if I had done this before, as if this exact moment was not new but remembered. My breath hitched, my chest tightening as the pieces brushed against my thoughts, not fully forming, not yet clear, but undeniably there. You feel it. The voice murmured, so close now it felt like it existed in the same space as my breath. I swallowed, my throat tight, my eyes still fixed on the reflection, on the shape that no longer felt separate from me. Yes, I said quietly, and this time there was no hesitation, no denial. The word came easily, like it belonged. The presence behind me did not move. It did not need to. It was already exactly where it needed to be. I exhaled slowly, my body adjusting without conscious thought, leaning back just enough to maintain that impossible closeness. Not touching, still not touching, but no longer distant. My fingers relaxed slightly, the tension easing in a way that felt unfamiliar but not unwelcome. What happens now? I asked, my voice steady, grounded in a way it had not been before. The answer came immediately, low and certain, as if it had been waiting for me to reach this point. Now you stop pretending this is the first time. The words settled into me, deeper than anything else had, and something shifted in response. Not in the room, in me. The resistance that had been holding on, however loosely, finally gave way. Not completely, not all at once, but enough. Enough to change the way I stood, the way I breathed, the way I understood the space I was in. I looked at my reflection again, really looked this time, and the realization came quietly, without shock, without panic. He had not been pulling me closer, not in the way I thought. I had been closing the distance on my own, step by step, choice by choice, long before I even realized I was moving. My breath steadied, my posture easing as that truth settled into place. Then do not let me forget again, I said softly, the words leaving my mouth without resistance. The response came just as quietly, but with a certainty that felt absolute. I never do. And this time, when I leaned back just a little more, there was no question left in my mind about what I was doing. I was not being pulled. I was choosing to stay.